Hey everybody, Sayre at Nova again. And this week we have not a Kawasaki. We have a beautiful 1967 BSA 441 Victor. If you were watching last time around, we had a BSA B25, close cousin to this thing, and it's been doing really well. So we thought, you know what, this one ended up in the shop the very next day after we shot that video, and we thought maybe we ought to just talk about this one too. Arguably, the 441 is far more famous and far more impactful than the B25, and that's just because it was BSA's big single at that point. If you know anything about Brit bike history, singles are big, big as in they're popular, big part of their lore, and the BSA Gold Star was sort of the mark for a while of what a big single was. And there's other makes. Mark's had them. I have a Velocet 500 myself, also a big single. But the BSA Gold Star was sort of the thing. It was the factory special that everyone could buy if you had enough money, and it performed really well. It performed well in road racing. It performed well as a cafe racer on the streets, and it performed well doing scrambles and dirt stuff, and even flat track racing here in the States. And so the 441 is sort of the follow-up to that. I say sort of because it's not as good. It's more cheaply made, but it carries the cachet, I should say. And I have a lot of mixed feelings about the 441. It's a big single. It's hard to start. You have to have the decomp lever. You have to get the kick pedal in the right place. If you get it wrong, or if the timing is set wrong and it kicks back on you, it can literally break your ankle. It has it's a high compression piston in there. It's about 11.2 to 1. So it's kind of a dangerous bike in a way. And once you do get it started, I've just been never sure what to do with it. As a dirt bike, I actually have one of these that I'm slowly building as a dirt bike, because as a big bore, heavy duty torque monster off-road machine, hell yes, this thing is awesome. It'll spin a tire, it'll pop a wheelie, and it's heavy, but it's light enough for the amount of power that it gives. Ton of fun. But as a road bike, it's really, you're never sure where you're supposed to be. It's kind of too slow for highways for sure. Back roads, it's okay, but it's never particularly happy to me. And I've just never been sure. I don't know. I'm not sold on it. If somebody offered me one, I'd say sure, but I'm going to turn it into a dirt bike. Hill climb, sure, yeah. I think anything off road, this thing is totally fine. But yeah, as a street bike or as an on-off road, as this one is, much like the Starfire was sold, it was sold as a sort of a scrambler on-off road. It's a little bit spotty. Now, that being said, I've only ridden these starting from 2000 or so onward, where roads have been paved, and I was in the city for a lot of that time. And the roads up here are relatively high speed. So if you live in a place with a lot of dirt roads, and it does make an adequate dual sport on-off scrambler kind of thing. But as a street bike, I'm kind of confused about it. So I do want people to tell me why they love them when they do, and also tell me why you hate them, and how many of you out there are limping on your right side because of them. I know a few. Basic specs of it. It's called the Victor. I should get into that before I go babbling about my opinion. It's called the Victor because it was based on the C15, which was a 250, the factory motocrosser that Jeff Smith rode to multiple world championships in the mid-60s. I think it was 64, 65. I could be wrong. That's coming off the top of my head. But he rode the factory took a BSA C15, which was their plodding, utilitarian, heavy flywheel, 250 pushrod single, and they made it into this 441. That was the size they ended up with, and they did stuff to the frame and all that, but they ended up with a 441cc bike, and it won world championships in the dirt. So to celebrate that, 67 comes around and they come out with the 441 Victor Special. And that's what this is. They had a road version of it as well, a Shooting Star, different tank, fiberglass tank. Actually, the tank shared the same lines as the Starfire. But this is the one that people think of. This tank, I think it's beautiful. I love an alloy tank. I love an alloy painted mix tank. And that really does it there. And, it's very simple. Not much else happening. 4-speed gearbox. As I say, it's a pushrod motor. Everything British was pushrod, air-cooled. 2 valves. Shifts on the correct side, I'm going to say. Yes, shifts on the... Yep, shifts on the right side, brakes on the left, and that was the standard for Brit bikes and even Harleys until 1975. And it's a standard primary drive on the outside. Yeah, 4-speed gearbox, very basic Brit stuff. Nothing too fancy. All evolved from the C15 unit single. Front brake single-sided, single leaning shoe, single-sided, not full width. Not a lot of brake there for aggressive road use. Fine for off-road and fine for just general plodding around. And the back is actually the same as the BSA Starfire, which is a single-sided on the other side. Spoke wheels, 19 in front, 18 in the back. Pretty normal for the time. This one does have a skid plate. Yes, this has a bash plate on it and the pipe. And if you watch the other Starfire video, I forgot to mention, while I was looking at it, that the pipe on that Starfire is actually a Victor pipe coming off here, tucking into the frame, as you see, tucks into the frame and then comes out again, whereas the Starfire pipe is on the left side and a little bit higher. Starfire pipe would always catch my pants on fire, so we ended up with that instead. Yeah, these are fun. They're kind of useless in my opinion in a lot of ways, but they're also really interesting. Now, what happened in the early 70s when BSA closed is a company called CCM bought out the rights to the motors, and they started making their own versions of them. And they kept the bikes going. They kept this engine going, and actually the B50 followed this with 500cc, a little bit bigger, very similar, some detailed differences. But CCM made these monster motocrossers that actually were competitive throughout the 70s, which is saying a lot because by the time the mid 70s hit, the Brit bikes were over. There was nothing left coming from the factories. Now, special tuners, they could do stuff, they could get fancy, but the Japanese had just taken over at that point, especially in motocross with two-strokes. Two-stroke technology really got perfected. You had reed valves, expansion chambers, lightweight bikes that could just pull and fly off jumps. And CCM came around with these things, and they made these 680cc singles, huge singles, and even they only had 3-speed gearboxes. I think some of them may have been 2-speed as well, because they had so much torque you didn't need to shift. So it was a very different approach, and I love that. I love that. Funny thing about me, which a lot of people don't know, because I've developed a reputation as a British bike mechanic. When I got into this world of British bikes, I did not like them. I thought they were poorly designed. Why would you have a bike that leaks so much, hard to start, doesn't want to stay running, tries to take itself apart at all times? And why would you do something that just seems such like a brute force and ignorance approach to things instead of finesse and good design? I was into Japanese bikes. I sort of thought BMWs were great. If you know me now, you would say I'm the biggest hater of BMWs. I love them, but I will talk a lot of shit about them because they're nowhere near as cracked up as people want them to be. And I really love British bikes. I love the simplicity of it. I love how easy they are to work on if you know what you're doing. I should say easy, how simple they are to work on if you know what you're doing. I also kind of like how hard they are to keep running because you have to know what you're doing to do it. And I like the fact that there's a different approach. While the Japanese were going into 6-speed gearboxes and high revving two-strokes, CCM took the old BSA designs and saw what was still working about it, and made this huge Torquey 3-speed gearbox that could still go out and win a motocross race against the best factory competition. So I love a different approach. I love thinking outside the box. If you watch these videos enough, I love the Colin Seelys of the world, the Tony Foles, the people who take stuff that didn't work and make it work better through just design and out-of-the-box design, not mass manufacturing, but detailed differences, pinpointing what's wrong with something and fixing it. That's just super cool. So, and the British were doing that. The companies who owned the British companies, the management was terrible, and that was why everything fell apart. But the designers themselves were really squeezing things out and making them work. So this bike to me is very interesting mix of trying to do a lot with a little, as the Brits at the end of their line really were doing. The designers trying to squeeze as much horsepower as they could out of old designs, and doing what they could with high compression and different things, and also running up against the realities of that they just couldn't afford to build a whole new bike from scratch, and so they weren't that reliable. They would blow up.
What's going on with this one?
Yeah. So speaking of blowing up, this bike was in our Unsprung rally. Made it almost all the way to lunch, and the guy started having a clutch issue. I was riding behind on my Veloset, and we looked at it, and I tried to adjust his clutch, and I took one look and took the cover off the plate. Took the inspection cover off the primary cover, which is not here at the moment, and realized that the clutch was moving just so much that there was something very wrong that we weren't going to get done. So he hopped in. I called the chase truck. Chase truck came and got him, brought it back. He left it here with us, and I pulled it apart the other day, and the inner clutch hub was just taken apart into so many pieces, metal everywhere, rubber everywhere, and it's probably it could be that somebody assembled it wrong at one point, but knowing with this bike, it's probably just as likely that it just took itself apart. A lot of vibrations, a lot of forces on a small part. So it's actually not a hard fix. I got the pieces in this morning. I'll throw it back in today. Hopefully by the end of the day, might get a video of it running for the shorts feed. So stay tuned. And then I'll just check his valves before I get it running. Do a couple little things to make sure the bike is in good shape, and give it back to him. So as I said with the Starfire, these things are great to own if you're willing to keep putting them back together. They do reward you if you like riding it. They are ride it. They're great. They're fun, and nothing is ever too catastrophic for the most part. That's about all I got. I consider this bike to be sort of a controversial bike in that some people love them, absolutely love them, and I get that. And some people hate them. And I'm right in the middle of, like, it's got a place. I just don't always know where that place is. And I'm not always enamored by them. But I love to work on them. I love to test ride them. I love having them around, and I love the sound. A big thumper, nothing like it. So thanks for watching. Like and subscribe if you haven't. It really does help us seeing these numbers go up, and we love it. We love you guys watching out there, and we'll see you again.